Guys, there's a writer for The Atlantic named Elizabeth Bruning, and she authored a piece called The Harlem of Elon Musk. The Harem, excuse me, not the Harlem. God, does Elon Musk own Harlem now? The Harem of Elon Musk. And apparently, a lot of people think that Elon has 14 children that he's fathered. But she was alluding to the idea that that's not the rumor amongst the closest people around him. Apparently, it's actually believed that he's fathered quite a bit more than 14 children. How many is quite a bit more, Jesse? Well, apparently the rumor is he's fathered maybe as many as 100 children. Back in the day, he actually had a company called Zip2. Zip2's mission was to bring the Yellow Pages online. And apparently he was being interviewed back in the day about this company, and whoever was interviewing him said, "Hey, this is great," and moved on to another subject. And apparently he stopped him and he said, "Wait a minute, you don't understand how big this company is going to be," which, keep in mind, I don't ever remember hearing about Zip2. So apparently it ended up not being as big as he had hoped. But he said the reason it was going to be big is because, get this, he believed that he himself was the reincarnated spirit of Alexander the Great. So this channel that I watched this video on, it's called I've Had It. And they actually have a fun little moniker. They call themselves iHip News. It's two blonde women. I'll give you a picture of the two women. I've been watching their show every day for the past 2 or 3 weeks. They make poking fun at President Trump and Elon Musk fun, even if you don't necessarily believe everything they say. Let me tell you a reason why I think it's funny when Democrats poke fun at Elon Musk. A lot of times, they'll describe him as this Adolf Hitler type, right? That all he does is Sieg Heils everywhere, right? All these Nazi signs. But what they don't realize is if he was so horrible, if he was so bad, then how come 2 or 3 years ago when he was on your side, how come none of you guys warned us? Shouldn't you guys have warned us? By the way, she must have said 2 or 3 different times on this video, and I'll share this video if you guys want to take a look at it. She must have said 2 or 3 times something along the lines of, your car sucks, your stock is tanking, you need to be let go, right, from the company. And it's funny because I can recall President Biden wanting his initiative around the country was to add charging stations for, I assume, Elon Musk's, the Tesla company cars. So again, my question that I have for her and other Democrats is, how come you guys didn't bother to warn us when he was on your side? But now that we find out that he's conservative and on our side, all of a sudden there's 1,000,001 red flags and everybody should ditch his cars and ditch his stock. It just seems kind of interesting when it comes to things like timing. That's the same thing that bothers me when they say, "Hey, don't you see how dangerous and perilous the world is now that we have the orange man in charge?" Well, how come not a single one of you ever stood up when we had the last president in there for 4 years and the guy couldn't tie his shoe, he couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without falling, he couldn't do much of anything other than sniff young women's hair? How come you guys didn't care very much then like you do now? Does anybody else agree with me? It's funny. That's why it bothers people that people can go their whole life. Take these people in Hollywood, the Russell Brands and stuff. They can go their whole life living this horrible lifestyle, and they're protected by their little, let's call them a harem, right? They're protected by their Hollywood harem, so to speak, right? And then all of a sudden they say, "Hey, I'm Christian. I believe more in the ideals of conservatism," right? And all of a sudden they're in trouble. Should they be in trouble when they break the law? Yes, I've said that. If Russell Brand did bad, he deserves to be in trouble. If anybody does bad, Shannon Sharp or what have you, they deserve to get in trouble for that. I just find it weird that some people don't get in trouble until they're no longer on your guys' side. That's what kind of freaks me out about the Democratic Party. amongst the other things that she was claiming. This one might be true. A lot of Republicans might agree with this statement, but I don't fully agree with it. Let's see if you do. He, being Elon, claims that Doge was set up to save the US a bunch of money, right? That was his goal. Apparently, he thought he would originally save 2 trillion. Then I guess he redacted that number down to 1 trillion. And then I guess the last thing he said was, it looks like we're going to save closer to 150 billion. Still a pretty decent amount, but a far cry from 1, let alone 2 trillion. Well, she's claiming that he actually became a part of Doge, not to save you and me or the American people any money, but it was to prevent people from investigating his companies. To which I say again, what about the previous 4 years when he was your guys' golden boy? Nobody cared about what he was doing with his companies then, but now all of a sudden, he's on the orange guy's side. He's Hitler's, great-great-great-grandbaby, and all of a sudden, everybody wants us to worry about Elon Musk. By the way, if he does have 20, 30, 50, 100 kids, how crazy is that? He does strike me as the type that would make that a weird personal goal of his. If you agree, let me know down below. Another thing she was talking about is apparently, in her words, he's somewhat of a deadbeat dad. I guess he's not in all 14 kids' lives, right? I don't know if this is true or not, to be honest with you. Other than over the past month or two, I didn't even know he had 14 kids. I heard about it just over the past couple months. But she was claiming that that little boy that he has when he speaks from inside, the Oval Office with the president, apparently that little boy's name is X. Whenever people start naming their kids Blanket or X or, this, that, and the other, this, that, and the third, it always makes me question, can't we give kids, normal names? I think we can all agree X is a normal name if your name is really Xavier, but what the heck is his name? Is it literally just X? Anyway, why do I bring up X? Apparently, him having the little boy on his shoulders isn't to show that he's a family guy or that he loves his son like you would think. Apparently, it's to make it where people can't end his life by taking him out. Okay, that makes him sound horrible, right? Like he's using his boy as a bulletproof vest, and I'd imagine if you don't really like Elon or the Orange Man, it's real easy to pump your fist in the air and say, yeah, what a scumbucket. Well, if you love your kids, you would never see them as a bulletproof vest. And pray tell me, who would want to take him out? Wouldn't it be somebody, I guess, on the Democrat side? So what are you saying? You're saying he's using his son as a bulletproof vest to protect him from Democrats that might want to take him out? Because if your side is taking people out, which, by the way, it looks kind of like your side has tried taking out President Trump 2 or 3 times. I mean, who wants to be on the side where they solve all their problems with violence? To me, those aren't good arguing points. That's what I always try to look at, because this happens when people break up in real life, right? Joe and Tammy break up. They not only break up and split up themselves, but they have to split up friends, right? Because if you're friends with Joe, you're not going to be friends with Tammy, and vice versa. When Tammy and Joe were together, Tammy and Joe could both do no wrong. But now that they're split up, now there's that schism between them. Now all of a sudden, one of them is good and one of them is bad. Well, that's the Elon Musk phenomenon. How come we weren't warned that this guy wanted to be Alexander the Great 3 years ago? How come we weren't warned that he's the next Adolf Hitler when everybody was buying his car and setting up power changers or power, what are those things called? I don't even know. Why? Because I have a gas-powered car. Because even when Elon said, hey, I'm on the orange guy's side, I already knew that the materials that are needed to make those batteries and stuff, the minerals, those things are really not the easiest things to come by, and they might not be all that great for the environment. But I didn't need for him to become a Republican for me to see that there were some disadvantages to everybody driving electric cars. You know, they did this with Trump as well. If you remember, Trump, once upon a time, was a Democrat. I think some would even argue that a lot of people that were Democrat back in the day, what's back in the day, Jesse? The 80s, 90s, early 2000s, a lot of them kind of became conservative because they felt like the Democrat Party was getting a little bit out of touch. What do you mean, Jesse? Well, isn't it a little bit out of touch when you're telling us how horrible this guy is and that he's got 100 kids on the way? I mean, I don't know about you. If somebody has 14 kids, you might say, oh, he's got more. He's probably got closer to 20. But who the hell throws out a number like 100 and expects people to listen to them? Absolutely ridiculous. So again, just remember, guys, every time you ever broke up with a girl, or ladies, every time you ever broke up with a guy, if he had a lot of good friends, pretty soon he and those friends were going to start talking crap about you and the person that you are. Does that mean that those rumors are true? No, there's a good chance that he's bullshitting with you. Well, that's exactly how I look at this gossip. That's all it is just weird gossip. Anacol says the dude essentially fled South Africa to avoid mandatory military service, but now he's the reincarnation of Alex the Great. When did they find out, Coanical, that he ditched South African mandatory military service? That sounds like something that probably happened when he was 18 or 20 years old, which once again, that would have been 30 years ago. You guys had plenty of time to warn us about this. Why are you doing it now? What's the agenda there? Look at this guy's name here, @WashRedskin887. I grew up a football fan. When I see and hear about the Washington Redskins, right, the old football name, I don't look at that and say, oh my God, how racist people are. I look at that and I say, man, the logo on the side of that helmet was beautiful, right? This Indian chief warrior, based on a real person, by the way. And a lot of Native American Indians actually would prefer if you brought back that name, the Redskins. You guys know this story, right? They weren't the Commanders, they were the Washington Redskins. But we as a people now look at that name and we say, hey, that name is not necessarily a name that should be on a professional sports team's, that shouldn't be the name of a professional sports team. Yet this guy, Washington Redskin 887, says, I hope Tesla stock goes to zero. I'd be willing to bet that 9 out of 10 Democrat voters would prefer that you change your name from Washington Redskin 887 to something else. So I'm glad you have your opinion, but again, it just seems really weird. We live in this hypocritical world where people see everybody else's shortcomings, yet they ignore the shortcomings of the most important person. Who's that, Jesse? Bob, the most important person is the man or woman in the mirror. Quit looking at everybody else's problems. Start with the man or woman in the mirror. Lothar Ditz says Musk and Trump have two things in common. They both care about themselves more than anything else. That's only one thing in common, Lothar. But thank you for giving us that. I think there's a lot of people that are narcissists out there. Trump, he is a little high on himself. Elon is a little high on himself. But I'd be willing to bet that if you go in the Democrat Party, I'd be willing to bet your leadership is right up there as well. There's a lot of people that can't really see beyond their own lives. I remember everybody was broke, and we got a chance to look at Nancy Pelosi's freezer, where she had about $500 worth of rich gourmet ice cream. Is that a little narcissistic too? Yes, it is. My buddy Jason in Trevor's house. Jason, pray for me. By the way, I want to thank you guys. You guys all helped me get my channel to the point where it's monetized. So if you started noticing that commercials are playing on the channel, don't get upset. Thank yourself, because I sure do. Sharky1101 says he might be the reincarnation of one of Alexander the Great's excrements at best. Okay, so now he's Alexander the Great's poo-poo. I think I heard somewhere, did you guys hear this? But didn't Putin say that he sees himself as the reincarnation of Alexander the Great? So we've got Alexander the Great, the Putin version, and then Alexander the Great, the Elon version. For some reason, whenever I look at Elon, I think he looks a little Frankensteinish. And what I mean by that is he looks like this giant guy. He looks like he must be 6'4", 6'5", I'm just guessing. When I look at Putin, from what I understand, he's like 5'4", 5'3". It'd be interesting to see those two Alexander the Greats stand right next to one another. Mick Feedback says, end stage capitalism meets end stage ketamine addiction. This is the one that I think is something that we should all be worried about. Did you guys see that video? If you haven't, look it up online, where it shows Elon kind of walking, then all of a sudden he starts doing this weird shit like a junkie, right? Like a drug addict. I don't know what it is with people that are doing drugs. They never can hide it worth a shit, can they? I mean, my goodness, every now and then I'll watch these videos, and I'm sure you guys do too, where they pull over somebody driving in their vehicle, and the person driving in their vehicle is obviously shit-faced drunk. And they'll be like, hey, did you have anything to drink? No, no, officer, no. What's that in your lap? Oh, it's an open can of beer. It's not what it looks like. It looks like an open can of beer, sir. You want to come out? No, I don't. Do I have permission to search the car? No. That was the one thing. I can remember a couple days when I was younger and I would get drunk, and then you would come home and you'd be like trying to get past, your folks, and they could just tell you were drunk or something. And I can just remember, Jesse, when was this? Are you an alcoholic? Guys, I'm 48. This happened when I was like 19, 20 years old, coming from high school parties. Sometimes you would look drunk because sometimes you would be drunk. And your number one goal was, how do I get past my folks up to my room so that nobody knows I'm wasted beyond belief? Sometimes we were good at it, sometimes not so much. If you have a fun story of a couple times that you got lit and your folks found out about it, let me know down below. If you've never drinking before, maybe that's something you could try this weekend. Go get yourself a 12-pack of Coronas and get lit up and see if anyone in the family notices. There's one thing that they might not notice right away, but if you keep doing, they will eventually notice. It's if you start a walking routine. They'll notice after 2 or 3 months that your mental attitude is better than ever. They'll notice that your weight and health are becoming better and better. And more importantly, you'll notice that as well. So grab your shoes, start walking with me every day, drink water, avoid sugar. Don't think about the politicians of the world. They can really bring us down. And have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow.